Are you having a hard time hitting the bullseye with your PRI program? If so, well, maybe that's not such a bad thing. And maybe you're just working too hard to try to hit that bullseye. Let's talk about it. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about this targeting this bullseye because I had an experience with a patient last week and she'd done PRI for a long time and she was really focused on making sure she hit the bullseye with her exercises, with her positions, and I see it a lot with patients, and especially those who have done PRI for a long period of time, and especially those who have done PRI for a long period of time and not had the success that they want. So I really feel like maybe I'm not doing it quite right. Maybe I'm not hitting the bullseye with my exercises. Maybe I haven't gotten my hips just perfect yet. Maybe my arches in my shoes aren't perfectly balanced yet. Maybe my shoulders still feel off a little bit. And the more we get engaged with seeing just the bullseye, we forget that our goal is really to give you access to the whole target. The problem is a lot of us don't have access to half the target, maybe even less than half the target because of our tendencies and our biases. And our goal with our activities is not to hit the bullseye. It's to give you access to a whole range of a target that you can hit without really having to work really hard. Because the more you really have to focus and engage and get directly on that bullseye, really the worse it's going to get. And that's going to make sense here in a second when we talk about what I'm going to talk about next. So instead of thinking about bullseyes with my activities, with bullseyes with my PRI programs, I tend to use this description here a little bit more. And I've used this with patients and they find it helpful, so I wanted to pass it on to you. And instead of using a bullseye and a target, I want to use a waveform. And a waveform or a sine wave is something that has a frequency. It has an up and a down, and usually there's a midline to it. And it's not always balanced from one side to the other, but there's an ebb and a flow and a back and forth between two things. And that's really how our system is designed to work. It's not designed to be flatlined. When you see flatline on your and a medical professional, it's usually not very good. We want to see ebbs and flows. There's times when we need to be at the top, there's times we need to be at the bottom. The goal for our activities is to make sure we can regulate that system better. So instead of thinking about a bullseye, I want to start to put some words on this chart to help us figure out this balance between two things. And we're not going to talk right and left today, though we could, but it's not going to follow through with kind of where we're going with this. But for example, let's look at breathing. There's times when you need to be able to be in a state, that one's not working anymore, of inhalation. So you got to breathe in. That's a good thing. There's also times when you need to be able to exhale. And I'm just picking red and blue not because one's good or one's bad, just because they're different. And exhale is a good sign too, right? You should be able to do both. Times when you got to breathe in, times when you got to blow out. If you're stuck on one or the other, that makes sense. We're not living life and we're not breathing in a normal way. There's times when you need to be awake, and there's times when you need to be asleep, right? Those kind of fall in, but we're going to talk a little bit different. Now, we talked about this with the triangle of destiny. If you missed that, go back and watch it. When we inhale, the tendency is for our spines to extend. And extension isn't necessarily a bad word. It's a descriptor of maybe breath of air in, maybe back bending, which is a good thing. Maybe when you're lifting heavy weights, you probably should do that so you don't hurt your discs. We're not saying that this is a bad word. It's a good word. The problem is when you're stuck here, all you get is tension. I like to use that one. Now, the opposite of that, which we've talked about, is flexion. There's times when you need flexion. You need to be able to relax and let go of the tension in your body. Let go of the tension in your back and in your neck. That'd be a good thing for a lot of our people, to learn how to get rid of tension. But if you're to go lift some weights in flexion, you're probably going to hurt yourself. So we don't want to live down here either. So this isn't the bullseye. That's not the bullseye. The bullseye is to be able to go between both. Now, how do we regulate those? We talked about breathing. There's times when we need to be really focused. You need to engage. You need to be motivated. You need to lock in, right? I'm getting ready for cramming for a test. I'm in a meeting. I need to be one-on-one, paying attention to what's going on. That's not a bad thing. That lives on this side of the chart. There's also times that you need to be able to shut it off. You need to be able to go out for a walk and be peripheral. just see the world. Don't get locked in with your vision. I'm talking literally get locked in with your vision. You got to be able to see the world. Because if you're literally locked with your vision, it's hard to access some of these things. You have to be able to see things flow around you and just go with the flow, right? Flow is different than really getting locked in. There's times you need to be able to be relaxed and calm. Well, those sounds like good words. They're not the bullseye, because if you live down there and you can never be motivated, never be engaged, never really get going with anything, it's hard to live life that way too. So there's times for both. Now, one thing that regulates this is something that's called your sympathetic nervous system, right? Kind of gets the bad markers of your fight or flight system. And it's not a bad system. It's a good system. It helps you do these good words, but it can also get you stuck in tension. It doesn't let you access relaxation and sleep. So there's hormones related to it and neurochemicals related to it. And when we get stuck here, it leads to lots of other problems. It can lead to allergies, and it can lead to chronic fatigue syndromes, and it can lead to muscles that are too tight and fibromyalgia type symptoms. And it can lead to things when this system is overhyped because of all these other words and an inability to access this half of the chart, which would be your parasympathetic nervous system, which is a good system, calms you, relaxes you. But if you live there and you can never energize, you can never get some cortisol, to get some energy, to get motivated, to start to move, well, then you're just going to go live in your parents' basement and just let the world go by you without motivation. And we have people stuck on that edge too. That's not a good thing. We need both. We need to be able to access both, because so that and there's no bullseye on this side. It's all, how do we get from side to side? So we can use vision, focus, peripheral, flow. Those things can help us access either side of that activity. If you're working too hard to focus, or you're focusing too much, that's a problem. We can work on breathing. We can work on activities to do extension and flexion. There are ways you can access your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system with medications and therapy and talking. And that's all kinds of good things that can help you access it, and they're going to give you access to all those different words. So remember, the goal with our activities is not to make sure you can just flex and exhale. This is not the bullseye. So if that's what you're doing, that's not the bullseye. The goal isn't to go stand on your left leg and then stand on your right leg. Neither one is bad or good. It's balance between the two that we're looking for. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. Leave me a comment, send me an email, and I want to help it make sense. But really, if you're working on a PRI program and you're working hard to hit the bullseye and you're not hitting it, or even if you are hitting it, but you still don't have access to the whole target, you're missing out, and you're missing out on really making sure you take a step forward in your program. And that's really what we want you to do. So I hope that makes sense. Leave me some questions if you don't. Leave a comment on things you'd like me to talk about if this kind of spurred something. If it did, great. If not, like I said, I want you to get some information from it, and hopefully you got something out of it. All right, thanks again. I look forward to talking to you more later. Take care.